I don't care about anything but FFP. I don't care about anything but FFP because they signed off. City is a phenomenal team and Pep is great. However, if we lose, we would rather lose to City fair and square until there are questions.
I think with the whole Pep and Manchester City, look, what Pep and Manchester City have done on the football pitch is incredible. But at the same time, I'm not going to bypass the fact that Pep is called by so many football fans that don't support Manchester City or Barcelona a checkbook manager, because that's just, we all remember spending 200 million on fullbacks in the space of 12 months. So these things also, they do play a part. What if Pep Guardiola was in a position in which he was managing a different club and he signed Danilo for 50 million and then he couldn't sign another right back? What if the owner of said football club came back to him and said, no, you signed Danilo, hold that. Now what? You signed Mendy, hold that. That's another 50 million, that's 100 million. That's both your decisions. So this is the thing, like, we're also not going to sit up here and act like Pep Guardiola did not spend significantly above everyone else to get to this level and essentially have a 23-man squad.
Of
It's
course.
getting to the stage where it was so ridiculous 2 years ago, where no exaggeration, City's B team would have finished second, third, or fourth easily.
And for me, as I said all along, one of the people in this whole circumstance I feel for is Pep Guardiola. Because if it turns out that, by the way, the majority of this was before he arrived, that City have lied to him and built this foundation for this success to grow from, and they've done it via cheating the system, I feel sorry for Pep Guardiola. Because it doesn't matter whether a UEFA and the Premier League still recognize the achievements. Football, and I mean by that the fans, will not. Nobody will accept it. And that's the beauty of greatness. Whether it's the great Liverpool teams of the 70s, Fergie's teams, currently Pep's team as examples, Jose's Premier League teams, Jose's Porto's, all these great teams, his Porto team, all these great teams that were created. What makes them great is through bated breath and gritted teeth, or when your rivals say, oh, they were so good, they were really good, though, weren't they? That's when you know you were something. That's when you know. But if everybody says don't care about them cheats, it loses its panache. If it doesn't register any emotional connection to your rivals, your achievements become obsolete, in my opinion. If suddenly no one cared about what Man United had done, it would bother me. And that is what will happen. So I look at it from the point of view, from a footballing standpoint, for Pep Guardiola's sake, and for a lot of Man City fans who I respect, I hope they haven't done this. I hope their club, because do you know what? We'll look at it as my club's been cheated and Liverpool have been cheated and Man United have been cheated. But the biggest people that would have been cheated are the damn fans and the players and manager. Your club would have cheated you out of genuine, bona fide, legitimate glory. And I feel for Man City fans if indeed this is true. Terry, only one argument was time barred, 5 were not. Okay, fair enough, my friend. And yeah, again, the court of arbitration, you won a lot of these battles, brilliant lawyers, etc. But you're not listening to my point. That won't happen this time round. There is no court of arbitration for sport to go to. So yeah, we will see. And like I said before, that doesn't explain to me, like I've said, what I need personally, and this is just to change my opinion for what it's worth. And obviously you respect my opinion. You watch every show, you super chat, and I really respect you for that. I need those emails explained. I don't want a technical lawyer term that stops them from being admissible as evidence. Because again, we've all watched enough real life court cases to see genuine evidence thrown out because of a mistake or because of a time issue or because of a date problem, or someone I watched a court case, like a show on a court case once, and because the prosecutors, they had like a date wrong. No, an address, sorry, was wrong on the court documents. They were thrown out of evidence, but it was one of the key pieces of evidence. That doesn't mean it wasn't real evidence. In a court of law, though, it has to be thrown out. But in reality, if you're sitting, that's why I never get juries. If you're sitting there as a juror and you're like, well, they can't use that evidence, but we know that evidence proves that he's guilty. How can I not mentally still find him guilty? I've never understood how the mind works that way, but there we go. This says, so this makes Klopp a 3 times Premier League champ.
Campione.
They won't. I don't think they'll strip titles irrespectively. And even if they did, I don't think they'd represent them. But yeah, there will. Do you know what's really mad about it? If they turn out to be guilty, there is an element of both them and Chelsea, by the way. both Chelsea and City helped to raise standards in the Premier League. You know, United started it, Arsenal raised it, United raised it again, and then City and Chelsea came in and raised standards. If it turns out that all those standards were raised through cheating the system, there is an element that will make people think, God, all those days of being bantered for not being as good as them, and they weren't doing it legit. I mean, this must be how a lot of athletes feel when it turns out that, you know, the best boxer or the best runner was taking steroids for years. They must be like, so there was me being told I was rubbish because I wasn't as fast as Joe Bloggs, but Joe Bloggs was pumping himself full of juice. Let's have a little look at some.
The 05 title, which Juve were found guilty of. We all know that. We all remember. By the way, for all the younger guys who don't remember this growing up, 04, 05, Juve won the Serie A, and they were found guilty of the scandal, the refereeing scandal, in which they were influencing results for their games and other games. They got relegated to the second division, and their title got stripped. And if you go right now and Google the 04-05 champion, it will show up as Inter Milano, who finished in second place that season behind Juventus, but they ended up giving them the title, basically. So yeah, that's what happened. So it'll be very interesting. Look, if Manchester City gets stripped of their title, if Manchester City gets stripped of their titles, I actually read somewhere, I might be wrong, that it would still be Liverpool and Man United one title apart. You'd still be one title ahead.
Yeah, it wouldn't help. It wouldn't. But do you know what? This is the thing about it, and why it has to be taken seriously, is people have lost jobs. So you think about that Centurion season.
Oli would have been a Premier League champion.
Yeah, but if you go, that's the irony of it. If you also go back to that year, Jose, first season, wins 2 trophies. The next year, we actually didn't have a bad season. We had like 85 points and came second. But City won the league with like 100 points. But this is why it has to be taken seriously. And City fans won't like hearing this, but it's the fundamental truth. Because if they've created a base that's enabled them to get to 100 points, someone like Jose would have been, could have been, and maybe would have been a Premier League winner with Manchester United. But because he couldn't win, he was so far behind City. That was one of the reasons why a lot of United fans turned on him. And that's why this has to be taken. I think this is why it is being taken seriously. And I think the same as Chelsea's situation. You have to look at these things in the way they do. Also, even when you do what Everton have done, you have to take it seriously and punish them, because if you're just allowed to overspend and break the laws, it impacts other teams. Because you think about Everton. Now, they stayed up a couple of years running. They just about stayed up. But the reason they're being deducted points is if they hadn't have overspent, they would definitely have gone down. Imagine they were not even very good. Imagine you take away like £100 million worth of their talent. They go down. So somebody else essentially has been relegated because they overspent. So you have to punish them. And there's always a knock-on effect when it comes to you cheating the system. You always take something from somebody else that they should have had. And that is why there must be. That's why I don't think it's wrong that Everton have been deducted 10 points. I've seen a lot of journalists say it. I've seen a lot of pundits say it. And I'm like, no, they've broken the rules of engagement. They knew what the laws were. They knew what the rules were. And they've gone against it. This notion that Everton should be given a free pass is crazy. Everton overspending has helped contribute to other teams going down. It absolutely fundamentally has.
Free pass, though. They just got a 10-point deduction. That's the thing. And that's why when you ask me about Everton, I kept it real and I said, look, if you've made a mistake that's led, okay, I'll use my club as an example, just so people don't get pissed off. If Liverpool spent 200 million in January, let's say Liverpool outright signed 3 players. They say we're going to win the league and we're going to spend 200 million in January. Come the end of the season, Liverpool have not won the Europa League, not won the FA Cup, finished 5th, finished 6th, and are not in Champions League football. If we get a points deduction or we get charged, they have every right to do that. Everton made a mistake. Everton made the wrong footballing decisions on the football pitch. And 100% Terry's right. It affects everyone else. The problem is the knock-on effect. Because now, Norwich, who got relegated, other clubs who got relegated back then are going to go like, wait a minute. So all we had to do was just cheat the system and we would have had just a points deduction 3 years later.
Exactly. And this is the thing with it. You cheat the system, build a better squad, and then grow from that point. Even a 10-point deduction in 2 or 3 years' time could be better than you getting relegated originally. So there has to be big punishment for this. There's a comment here. We'll do some more of these super chats, but this here from Twisted Bubba about what I said about Jose says, Terry, United spent as much as City. Your argument is flawed. Well, it isn't flawed. Again, it's you have to go into more detail. So United haven't spent their money particularly well, and we know this. But that is a separate argument. Man City, whether they've cheated or not, they run their club impeccably, and they're a better run club than Man United from a day-to-day practice point of view. But if it's proven that from when FFP and all the regulations came in, up until that season where they beat Jose to the Premier League, that they've been signing players that without circumventing the system, they wouldn't have been able to afford, they wouldn't have had that team and that squad. So irrespective of how poor Man United have spent their money, City may not have had that squad. In fact, they wouldn't have had that squad if the accusations against them, the charges against them are proven. So Man United spending money is an irrelevance because we know what Man United were. They got about 85 points that year, which isn't too far away from being able to. And by the way, I think we got beat twice that season by Man City. If City weren't as good, maybe we beat them once. Suddenly you're on 88 points. That's a pretty good total to win Premier Leagues. A lot of teams have won Premier Leagues on that amount of points. So yes, to say it's flawed is wrong. It's you're right if we're going to look at a very basic level. Man United spent as much, therefore it doesn't matter. But this is why you have to look at these things deeply. Let's have a little look
At the same
here.
time, Man United, from a business perspective and from a marketing perspective, they were levels above every single Premier League club for the first 20 years of the Premier League era.
Yeah.
No, without any doubt. And I'm saying this in terms of like fans in East Asia. I'm talking about fans all over the world, the places that they used to travel to, their marketing, their sponsors. From a marketing perspective, Man United were the smartest club in the 90s and the early 2000s. And that's what allows them to make this much revenue, even when they are fucking shit, because they have fans all over the world. That's the thing. That's the difference between the clubs have established themselves from a marketing perspective. That's why even me, someone who's FSG out, I always give credit to FSG for what? For talking, for fixing the marketing side. And the fact that the marketing side and the business side and the monetary side, Liverpool Football Club are now making money, that shows that we've covered some ground in terms of that. However, even with Liverpool's success recently under Klopp, I'm still humble enough to sit back and go like, Man United make more money, because this is just like, it's not going to undo 30 years worth of work from a marketing perspective to just undo it once. That's not how life works. So yeah, that's why it's different. You know, Man City were not known around the world. Look at what Pep Guardiola said, your own manager. He said he'll forever be a failure because Julia Roberts came to Manchester and went to see Man United in 8th place instead of seeing Manchester City, who are champions. So hold that.